So we're at Superbooth 2017 with Mark Verbos, checking out the back filter.
Hi.
So it's an interesting frequency scale rather than, say, a normal rack EQ that's multiples of an A, 110, 220, 440 hertz.
Well, that's the big issue that's common with filter banks is that the conventional thinking for a graphic equalizer or something like that would be to space the filters on octaves, but what happens then is that certain notes in the scale are emphasized over and over again. So by having a slightly less obvious spacing, or in this case a spacing that's not actually musical but is based on some research that was done about where the sensitivity in human hearing is. So the area where the ear is the most sensitive has a smaller spacing of the filters, and then on the fringes the spacing is wider. But the important thing in this case is that it is a filter bank, but the filters are quite steep. They're 3 stages deep, so they have 36 dB per octave slopes, and that allows the separation between them to be pretty extreme, and the tops of the filters to be very flat. So unlike some other filter banks that you'll find, the signal with all of the sliders up is pretty similar to what went in, not sounding really cold.
Getting the sort of combing effect that you can get.
Right, but that also allows for more separation, or not to automatically put its own strong sonic signature in, but to start from more neutral and then do something more extreme. So this this configuration, the filters are fixed at frequencies, but having this voltage controlled mixer with the controls that users of our products are familiar with from the harmonic oscillator.
Spectral tilt, scanning through harmonics.
Right, and putting that stuff together with the manual control and the CV individually of each band allows the mix of all of these fixed filters to be dynamically moved around, so it actually allows the filter to sound like it's
like a low pass.
Well, like it's moving around in some way. And so if
like a variable bandwidth band pass as well.
These controls are a bit like a band pass that has a bandwidth control and a center frequency control, or as a low pass or whatever, and then the spectral tilt allows you to do some simple, like make it brighter or make it darker kinds of changes where you actually very simply can get to different ideas, and all of that stuff happens at the same time cumulatively, so it can be pretty flexible. And also by having an envelope follower on each of the filter outputs, then there's a display, so the yellow LEDs are showing the levels on those envelope followers. So it can give an interesting view of where the frequency content is, and then a display of what the mix is doing at the same time. So a sort of two things happening at the same time, cooperation that makes for a very informative display.
And it's the sort of basis of a vocoder as well, with the analysis bands, and you could patch into the levels to then modulate the levels of the other bands as well.
Exactly. So over here, these switches will engage either the odd filters or the odd envelope followers to control the level of the even filters, or vice versa. And then this is a control for the overall decay of those controls. So a real genuine vocoder would have it would have two sets of filters, But this is a kind of shortcut to do a simplified version of vocoding, which is effective in situations where you just need a quick and dirty vocoder type effect, but you're not necessarily trying to make robot voices that are really convincing.
Yeah, I think things like that when you've got, say, drums and percussion against a noise source, it works really well.
Yes.
Primitive
really,
vocoding.
Yeah, and some other ideas like sending a pad type sound through one side and a drum loop through the other to create these dynamically moving sounds out of a static source.
Yeah, and it's something that I don't think we see a lot of in Euro rack. There's a Surge Res EQ, I think that's tuned in sevenths, the frequency band.
Yeah, that one is also, I think it's on a musical scale, but it's a bit unconventional.
Yeah, I think rather than octaves, they just come down onto like a seventh interval, and I think that's a bit more like sort of acoustic instruments, properties of string instruments and things.
Well, the other thing that's important to remember, what separates the filter banks from equalizers is that in a filter bank, when the controls are all down, in fact, nothing comes through. Right. Whereas in an equalizer, you would just have neutrality in the mid position, and you'd be either adding or subtracting.
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks for taking us through that.
Thanks for stopping by.